DNVR Broncos live coming to you from Studio A here at the DNVR bar. And A today stands for another day. At least another day for Nathaniel Hackett. And probably another week, as teams usually don't fire coaches in the middle of the week. So that's what we're here to talk about. We'll get to that in just a second. But first, I want to let you guys know that we are presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. Hit up DraftKings Sportsbook. Get in on all of their great deals that they have over there, including bet 5 on an NFL money line. Get $150 in free bets over at DraftKings Sportsbook. Well, no 6 a.m., jump out of bed, throw on a sweater, and come to the studio for an emergency show today.
No, there wasn't, and I'm not surprised. And I think, you know how we talk about with coaches, how it's good to get out of the building. It's good to not overthink things. It's good to kind of take a step back from their coaching things. I kind of did that last night when I left because the game was so bad. And of course, there's still nothing to feel good about that game for. But you kind of take a step back and you realize this isn't the first time that a coach has started 3-8 in their first season and made it to the next game. In fact, the past two Broncos coaches have started 3-8 their first season, and not only did they make it to the next week, they made it to the next season. Now, there were two major differences with this team and those teams. The first, those teams didn't have a quarterback named Russell Wilson, a quarterback that had many Pro Bowls to his name. And then the second that comes with that is the expectations for this season were so different than those other teams. But let's also not forget that those teams, especially the one with Vance Joseph, did have a good defense, a really good defense. And there was some hope that maybe they could build around that and be competitive. I think there was probably still more optimism around this season, but there were things going for it. And now, while John Elway had to sleep on it, Vance did get a second year. And so the fact that we're sitting here today after what I can only assume is going to be the most embarrassing loss because of how bad they were, how bad the Panthers were, and just how bad the game was, I think Hackett's going to make it through the rest of the season.
I was going to say the same thing. I thought I might be the only one. I think he's here for the rest of the year. You just don't see first-year coaches get fired in the first year. It just doesn't happen. It's happened 5 times, or this would be the 5th time ever. And, you know, there was the Mike Florio article last night that he dropped. No,
what did he say?
He said it's tough to tell exactly what the owners are going to do because it's tough to get. And so I was like, well, what are we doing here? But he also said, you know, they're very smart. They're very methodical. They're not panicking. There's no reason to. Every game's been close. The injuries hurt the roster. The players are, for the most part, playing hard. It's only 4 times ever before has a head coach been fired in the middle of his first season. It just doesn't happen. And with all of these factors weighing in, I'm just at that point where I say Nathaniel Hackett's going to be the Broncos coach through week 17. And maybe it's me just accepting our fate. I don't hate it. I understand.
Yeah, I was thinking last night, I was like, man, Walmart doesn't even like paying people to work. Why are they going to pay someone to not work? I think this is bad. I think this is the wrong decision. And it sucks. I don't want to be in this seat because I like Nathaniel Hackett a lot.
Yeah.
But the effort is the problem for me yesterday. I felt the effort was really lackluster. They looked disorganized. They looked disinterested. And I thought the defense was the clearest sign of that. Like, when you're getting carved up by Sam Darnold and Dante Foreman and DJ Moore. DJ Moore's a nice player. But you know, they've held their own against much higher competition this year. So the fact that they went out there and just kind of loafed around for 60 minutes, the offense was just as bad, if not worse, than they've been. It just, to me, looked like a team that has no juice, no energy, no drive. And I think they look at Nathaniel Hackett as a dead man walking, and that hurts things. And so to me, like I said, I like Nathaniel Hackett as a dude. Yep. I think things are going to get worse from here, not better. And firing a coach doesn't necessarily fix your problems, but it at least brings a different new energy.
It appeases people.
Right. And it just kind of sends the train on a different path.
Well, and it would put players on notice a little bit.
Yep.
If you're willing to fire your head coach in their first season and pay him $20 to $25 million to walk out the door, and by the way, a week before you cut Melvin Gordon, that's like, oh shit, we're not messing around anymore, right? And that's when players, if they're not giving it their all, I think that does kind of kick them in the ass.
Yeah.
And the one thing I'll add, like I left the game thinking the exact same thing. Like they're not playing well, obviously. It looks like they're not trying hard. All those same things you said. But then later last night, I realized even good teams have bad games when they go on the road. Like not all the time, but every team is going to have that down game where, the Ravens yesterday, the Ravens go out there, they're kicking field goals, they wind up with like 17 points. It's still better than the Broncos, but the Ravens' best is way, way better than the Broncos.
I think they lost 27 to 28, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's teams, even Broncos teams in the past when they were good, have those letdown games on the road. And so that doesn't necessarily mean the season has ended. It just means they played a bad game, which happens sometimes. Now, it sucks to think that they've been playing some of their best games and those all turned out to be losses. But that's just how the season goes, is you're kind of 50-50 in your good games, and bad games look like that.
So, Henry, you and I agree about Nathaniel Hackett making it through the rest of the season. But my other major thought last night that just kept sinking in and this morning is, with this, you and I couldn't be on more different pages right now, because this football team is awful. They are so bad. This wasn't just one bad game, because I agree, every team does have one bad game, but this team this is who they are, is who they were yesterday. Now, maybe a little bit worse on both sides of the ball, but again, this was happening against one of the worst teams in the NFL that looks like they're in tanking mode. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if David Tepper was a little upset about that win yesterday.
They threw out their fourth-string quarterback.
Yes,
they did.
And with the backup head coach, they already traded their best player.
Is it third string?
Yeah, third string. They already traded their best player, but I mean, it's all the same.
Yeah.
They already traded their best player. They already traded their best wide receiver in Robbie Anderson. They are straight up tanking, and you went out and put out that performance. This was not a one-off. This is just how bad the Broncos are. And I mentioned tearing it down yesterday. It just feels like they're in that position where it's just they're that bad. And they're in the worst place ever because they can't fully do a rebuild right now because of where Russell Wilson is. So now you have to figure out, how do you build this team up? And I'm not just talking about one move. How do you build this team up with many different moves while also being constrained with this Russell Wilson deal?
Real quick, do you agree that was their worst game of the year, though?
Probably, yeah.
I think that
so.
was the lowest point of the season. Again, like it was the worst game for a bad team, and that's what you get.
Only the
when
worst because it was the latest.
Exactly. I mean, when the Chiefs come in here, it's going to be a little different than the Panthers conversation, because the Panthers is on the road, which the Broncos will play the Chiefs on the road. But it's also going to be like, well, yesterday they were bad, but if they could get beat 38-6 by the Chiefs.
And I'd argue, 38-6 is about the same as going down 23-3 to the Panthers.
And that's really how we need to remember that game yesterday. Is it when the game mattered, it was a 3-possession loss for the Broncos.
Yeah, and I agree with the fact that teams have bad games. It's just that I didn't like the body language. I didn't like the effort levels. And the worst part is, maybe I'm excusing them, but I don't even feel like it's necessarily that the players quit. I feel like that there's this energy around the Broncos right now that is so draining for everyone that they just don't even have that. Like, they've lost that edge. Not even on like, it's not like they were purposely like, screw Nathaniel Hackett. It's just like, here we go again. We got to play.
So, and I can't look at yesterday and disagree with you at all, Ryan. But my question to you is, if you move on from Hackett, is it clear you're going with Evero?
It should be. The only thing is there's like this whole other wrinkle in it where if you do this, then you have to promote him. Yeah. And so then it throws out his defensive coordinator contract. Now, I wouldn't be in favor of hiring a new coach and forcing them to make Evero their defensive coordinator anyway. But if that was a thing you wanted to do, you couldn't do that if you made him the interim head coach unless you wanted to renegotiate a new contract.
And hope he wants to stay.
Right.
So would you be doing this move of firing Nathaniel Hackett? You'd be doing it for this year just so that the team has a little inspiration.
Especially because you gain nothing from losing.
And that's very true. And to
Although
me,
you could get another last place schedule next year.
yes, you could.
They're
You
well
could.
on their way.
It could help a little bit.
I'm not
there.
too worried about not having that schedule.
Every team in the AFC West, but the Broncos won yesterday.
Yeah.
Could have easily flipped except for the Chiefs.
Yeah, both of the other
Yeah.
teams, two teams could have easily lost.
Should have lost,
But
honestly.
man, I mean, you look at the Raiders and you're like, they're a bad team, and what? They put up 34, 37 points, something like that.
40, I think.
On the road
Josh
against
Jacobs.
a winning Seahawks team, like a winning record Seahawks team.
300-yard day for Josh
Oh
Jacobs.
my gosh, insane! But
Total yards, yeah.
Yeah,
they
303.
made a mistake by not giving him the 5th-year option, didn't they?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, probably.
They're going to have to pay him a lot or let him go.
Yeah, but I guess the Broncos are in an even more miserable position than those other teams. But so for me, I'm no longer focusing on this year. And I understand why you are, and you would make that move to get a little juice left. And you're right, losing doesn't help you because you traded away that first-round pick, which is now a top 3 pick, which is insane. But
Sure
I'm
is.
focused on the future. But then what's tough is you want to see Evero, see what he can do as a coach, right? With this team, are you really going to find out if he's good or not? And one reason you could, though, Ryan, to your point, is if the guys play really hard for him, and they're not just playing hard next week when you typically have that 1-week boost from a new head coach, is if they're playing hard in week 18 when the game doesn't matter at all to the Broncos, but there's something on the line for the Chargers.
Yeah, and I don't really like this crop of coaches. Now, we're going to have all sorts of time to dive in, and I'm sure eventually I'll find my Mike McDaniel or
Exactly,
whoever. We also, liked KOC.
Yep.
There's a few other ones, and I'm sure that will emerge.
Yes.
But I also would like to see Evero because it's not like there's an obvious answer. I mean, Sean Payton is going to be the number 1 guy. I'm sure Dan Quinn will get love again. But I would just like to know how he is. Like, you rarely get to test drive a coach before you have to commit to them for, in these times, usually 5 years. So I think it's a free pass to do so. I also think there's one thing we haven't talked about. In not firing Nathaniel Hackett, is there any part of you that thinks that there are influential people in the building who think that he's not the biggest problem?
100%. And I'm really happy you brought that up because that was something else I was thinking was the ownership group. The ownership group, especially Greg Penner, may be thinking this isn't Nathaniel Hackett's fault. Now, he's certainly not helping it, and he's part of the problem, but this is a much bigger issue than just Nathaniel Hackett. So what are we doing just making the guy a scapegoat when really the season's only 6 weeks away from being done right now? Let's just wait till the end of the season, and we're going to blow it all up.
It's definitely possible. And I think it could go even deeper than that, whereas influential people think this is a Russ problem, not a Hackett problem.
Oh, they could. I mean, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of opinions. Like, that's there. You could point to anything. I guess those are the two biggest. It's your coach and your quarterback. But I'm sure somebody in that ownership group or, one of the Penners or whoever says, yeah, it's Russ. And somebody else has to say it's Hackett.
Well,
there's just no pointing one way or the other.
What you would say in response is, well, it's a lot easier to move on from Hackett than it is to move on from Russ. So we better hope that it's Hackett.
Right.
And my other thing with Hackett is he's not doing anything. He has no power. I can't remember if I said this on the show yesterday, but he's become like the queen, where it's like, yeah, he has a big fancy title. He can't actually do anything. He's not calling the plays. He's not making the decisions on big downs. He's not deciding when to call timeouts. He's not doing anything. Like, firing him, yes, it makes everyone else's job a little bit harder, but at the same time, it's like, you might as well try and see if you can mix up who does what and try and create a little bit of momentum out of this.
But there are a lot of head coaches that don't call the plays, and
they probably make the clock management decisions.
You're right. They probably do. And that is something where even Rosberg has hurt the Broncos these last couple of weeks. When he came in, it really did steady the ship for a little bit. But there's been questionable time. I mean, yesterday at the end of the first half, there was questionable, like, what are you doing letting the clock run out here? And then I believe last week, I can't remember off the top of my head, but there were even questionable things. So, I mean, it's fair. I see what you're saying, but you have to imagine Nathaniel Hackett's also very involved in the offensive game plan.
Yes, and it's still his playbook.
Yeah.
But I think that might actually be working against him.
It very well
Yep.
could be the case.
Yeah.
Like, if they had time, I would say you should be using Clint Kubiak's playbook.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
they just don't have time
Yeah.
to do, like, all they can do is kind of work in 1 or 2 plays every week. Maybe you could work in 10.
Yeah.
But that would essentially be a whole practice.
Right.
Trying to install 10 plays like that. So
you can't do it.
you're not doing that. Like, you can install a couple plays, and you're then working with what you had to start.
Ryan, you've kind of been cryptic about, is there someone in the organization that maybe thinks it's Russ instead of Hackett? Do you have someone in mind?
No, I honestly don't.
You don't?
I don't. I mean,
I don't know. There's a smile there.
I really, like, anyone you think there would be a reason why they, like,
Well, let's.
it would be so incriminating of himself if
Yeah.
George Payton thought this was a Russell Wilson problem.
Yep. And it would be more incriminating for George if he thought it was a Russ problem than a Hackett problem.
Exactly. Like, coaches are just a dime a dozen.
Especially when you have this ownership group and they can just pay anyone anything.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure they don't like anyone thinking that way, but it's true. Coaches come and they go, and you're wrong and you're right, and you hope to get lucky. Really, like, imagine what people would be saying if Mike McDaniel was 3-8 right now.
Yeah.
And he's not.
Right.
But there's a world in which the Broncos hire Mike McDaniel and the Packers hire Nathaniel Hackett, and maybe the same thing happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Hackett looks like the genius, and McDaniel looks like the idiot. So I think that George Payton himself has to think this is a Hackett problem, just because it's much it's much less bad on him. People miss on coaches all the time.
Yeah, and that's where I think you need to go even one step higher to ownership, and that's maybe what's happening right now. And let's dive into that, but first I got to tell you about Liquid Death. A couple of weeks ago, I was over at my buddy's house, and he was having some friends over, and he opens his fridge, and it is just full of beers, except for one part of the fridge. It was Liquid Death. It was severed lime. And
Did he call it Death Valley?
That would be a good one. But he was like, you can have anything. And then someone went for the Liquid Death. And he's like, whoa, like I have water. And he's like, that's the best thing here.
Wow.
That's the best. And that is just how good it is. You have like craft beers everywhere. And you're like, that Liquid Death is kind of what saves me, what's delicious. And
I still haven't made a tequila soda with a severed lime Liquid
how
Death.
have you not?
I don't know. That's like our go-to cocktail.
Yeah.
And I still haven't done it. Because when I see the Liquid Deaths, I just drink them.
Right.
I don't think I should make this into a cocktail.
Right. That would be the perfect cocktail. You wouldn't
So
even
good.
need to squeeze a lime in it because
Probably
it has
not.
it. No.
Or you could just do it and get even more lime.
Man, and you can do that with all different flavors that they have. Or if you don't like bubbly water, they also have just regular water as well.
Best water too.
There you go. And with being in the aluminum, it doesn't give it a taste or anything like that. So make sure to check out Liquid Death. And you can get Liquid Death at so many places. Get it at 7-Eleven, Safeway, King Soopers, Stinkers, Ulta. Find a Liquid Death retailer near you by going to their store locator at liquiddeath.com/DNVR. That's liquiddeath.com/DNVR.
Yep. And also make sure you get on over to Game Time. If you're trying to get to the Nuggets game tonight, it's not hard to do. Tickets are really cheap, including fees. You can get in the door for $7.
No way.
My
$7.
goodness.
If you want to sit in section 134, lower level, behind the basket, row 3, $18.
Oh,
Wow.
my
$18.
goodness.
And I guess there's like AA through II or whatever in front of row
Yeah.
3. Still though,
Still
third
great
row,
seats, yeah.
$18. That's why you go to Game Time.
Wow.
There's actually a whole bunch of options just like these. There's a bunch of options, lower level, under $20. I have a feeling they're going to keep getting cheaper throughout the day.
Who do the Nuggets play?
The Rockets.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, they suck. They really suck. It beat the Nuggets last time though, right?
Yes. Oh, I have to say, it is worth it to go to. If you've never been in an NBA game and sat that close, it is worth it.
It's insane.
Because the size of these dudes becomes so much more apparent with
insane.
every row. Like, I was fortunate enough to sit in like the 6th row the other night, and it's just like, I don't know. It's insane how large they are.
We've looked.
It's incomprehensible.
Yes.
You just have to keep looking. Sometimes there's crazy deals. Like we've sat right behind, I think it was the Heat bench, or like the second row behind the Heat bench, and it was like $53 with the fees.
Then you get to hear all the coaching and all that
yeah,
stuff.
that's when what's his name? I think he's with the Timberwolves. Patrick Beverly.
Yes.
Patrick Beverly was like turned around talking shit with the fans.
Oh,
like somebody's
love
like,
that.
"Why'd you go to Minnesota? It's so cold up there." He's like, "It's the same weather as you have here." And everybody's like, "No, it's really not. It's really not." But it was stuff like that. They're just going back and forth. But yeah, it's definitely worth sitting close. You can do that with Game Time. Use the link in our description below this video or in the podcast. Because we get points for referring you, so we really appreciate that. Great deals. 15 million people do it. Download Game Time and use our link.
Also, Cyber Monday, the very last day to get in on all the incredible deals we have going on over at the DNVR Locker. Go to dnvrlocker.com. You can get up to 90% off select shirts. You can get all sorts of awesome deals. You can get deals on our hoodies. You can get deals on, our T-shirts, hats, anything that we offer. You can get an awesome deal on. And if you are a DNVR diehard, which I know many of you are, you get an additional 20% off all the deals we're already giving. Plus, if you spend $75, you get a $15 gift card to use for yourself. So, buy some gifts for your family, then get some for yourself, or just buy it all for yourself and then get more for yourself. So make sure you go over to dnvrlocker.com. Today is pretty much, I won't guarantee this because you never know what's going to happen, but I will soft guarantee that this is the last day that you can get a deal on all of our merch until next Black Friday. So make sure you get in now. We don't do sales often.
Deals on deals on deals.
Yep.
On deals.
On deals,
On
exactly,
wheels?
exactly. On wheels, and the Penners aren't getting deals right now from really anyone that they're paying because the Broncos are 3-8. But I wouldn't be surprised if, and I shouldn't say I wouldn't be surprised. What I've also thought is maybe Greg Penner saying, "Don't make a move, George Payton," because in the words of Nathaniel Hackett, we're going to evaluate everything, and we're evaluating everything, and we're going to make some decisions at the end of the season. And that's them kind of saying, we're going to evaluate your job, and then kind of as we evaluate everyone's job, because this is to the point where it is just so embarrassing. You do have to look at every single thing here, and they might be saying, I remember when the Broncos hired George Payton, and I was told by someone very close to him that don't be surprised if the Broncos, if George Payton just kind of sits back, makes some moves here and there, but doesn't make any big moves. And what that told me was, don't expect the Broncos to make a move at quarterback his first year in town, because it was he wants to sit back, kind of see how things go. The Panthers, David Tepper, when he took over, he did the exact same thing. He said, I'm not going to hire a new GM. I'm not going to fire the coach. I'm going to take a step back, watch how things go for a year, then start making moves. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Penners are taking that exact same approach. They're very savvy business people. They probably want to see not just on the football field with the most important positions, but across the entire company. What's working, what's not, then let me keep the people that are working, fire the people that aren't, and kind of just give it a full year. And so I think that is something that's also coming to play here.
I want to ask you this. If you think that they're being very methodical and thoughtful and all these things, do you think there's any chance that Nathaniel Hackett comes back for a second year?
Yes.
Yeah. I do think there's a chance.
Ooh.
And it goes back to the past two Broncos coaches.
Yep.
3-8. As bad as it feels now, it probably felt bad then, maybe not as bad, but they came back for a second season, and it's just so rare for a coach to get fired, not just as Henry was saying in a season, but even after a season. Typically, you get 2 years to do it, and especially, Ryan, if George Payton or another top football executive is telling Greg Penner, I think this is more of Russell Wilson issue than a Nathaniel Hackett issue, then maybe they say continuity is the best thing here, to run it back for one more year. And then also, on top of that, we've had this talk yesterday about how they're in a weird spot. If they fire Nathaniel Hackett but want to bring George Payton back, and then George Payton gets to hire another coach next year, and it doesn't work out next year, you're probably going to move on from George Payton, and then you're probably also going to move on from that head coach. Well, you're not in a weird position if you just keep it all for one more year and say, George, you made this hire last year. We're going to let you ride one more year with it, and then you and him, not just him, but you're on the line as well this year. So I can see it.
I think if they finish 4-2,
12, 15, no, 13, 4-13. Oh, you mean
Oh,
this
no,
season?
No, yeah, the rest
I'm
of the
sorry,
way.
I'm
The
sorry.
rest of the
Okay.
way, yeah. Yeah, I mean, then you're sitting there at 7-10.
Yeah.
I think it's a conversation. And that's like the Broncos finished 9-8. Maybe they'll get lucky and make the playoffs. That's the same thing for Hackett, where it's like, maybe he sticks around. I think 4-2, maybe you win both games against the Chiefs in there.
Oh my God.
Like, which again, like, I don't think it's going to happen. I don't think they're going to go 3-3 the rest of the way.
Yeah,
How
yeah,
could
yeah,
you?
yeah.
But I mean, if they, maybe lose the Ravens, beat the Chiefs, lose the Cardinals, beat the Rams, Chiefs, and Chargers at the end of the year. At that point, they might be like resting guys, though. That might not be the path. But 4-2, I think there's a real conversation. And again, like you're seeing it more and more, but it is still rare for a coach to be fired after 1 year. And then you can point to all the injuries. At that point, if they're winning those games, you probably have Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler out there making plays. Dulcich probably steps up. The defense is continuing what it's done to this point in the season, but against the Ravens and the Chiefs and the Chargers again. So I think 4-2 the rest of the way. There's a conversation.
I think 4-2 he's back, just straight
Wow.
up. I think 3-3 he's got chance.
I'd rather. I think it's more likely to see them score 4 touchdowns and win 2 games than it is to see them go 4-2.
Yeah.
I worry that this is a possibility, and I think that if it is the case, it's going to be a rough offseason.
I wonder if the sellout streak would truly be in jeopardy then. Because, I mean, just someone in the comment section, I don't know if I can see the name right now, said if Hackett stays, I'm leaving this team. And who knows if that would actually be, I don't think there'd be a mass exodus, but there would people, it's from Broncos Stampede, said that there would be people that would say, this is a whole new organization this year, and they're still doing this. In fact, they're even going more into keeping something that seems like it's not working.
Yeah, it would be very rough. The good news for the Broncos is they have like 70,000 people at least.
87,000.
That's true.
On
Yeah.
the list for
Yeah.
season tickets. So if you want to leave, there's someone right behind
That's
you ready
true.
to fill in.
87,000 people hoping you do.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, the lion at the bar. And they're like 1 in, 1 out. And everyone's just like, please, someone leave.
I'm not waiting in this line. Yeah, you don't have to.
Right, exactly. Just make me one step closer.
Yeah.
I don't know if any of that would happen, but I just know that it would suck out all the excitement. And, they were lucky to get the excitement that they got out of Russell Wilson this offseason because it was really unfounded in the end. This going into next season, you just would have nothing other than like they probably bring in a legitimate offensive coordinator who runs the offense, and like that's basically the only like positive conversation that's happening is like, okay, well, if this guy can get Russ on track and turn the offense around. Whereas if you do reset the coaching staff, which is just crazy to do again, but your hands are a little bit tied with how badly you missed on this hire, or the combination of this hire and the quarterback. At least everyone kind of has that fresh sense of,
100%.
well, this could really change.
100%. And then there would be a lot of hope, but the hope would be that, okay, maybe it was all Hackett, and Hackett brought Russ down that much, where if it still is Hackett, and maybe you move on from out, and like you said, you bring a new play caller in, and you fire Stooks, people are just going to be like, come on. People are going to feel at that point that it is just a scapegoat, but a long-term scapegoat, because it's not just for the last 3 games of a season. It's for a whole new season.
But people would still probably not be happy. But you have to remember, if that's happening, it's because the Broncos went 4-2 down the stretch. There's probably a couple 30-point performances in there. I think you probably have to beat the Chiefs in both those games. One on Sunday Night Football, one on New Year's Day. You got Russ going out there, out-dueling Mahomes. Again, that's not going to solve all the problems, but people wouldn't be seeing Hackett the way they see him now at that point. And it wouldn't be all roses and flowers and all that stuff, but it would be different than it is now. I don't think any of that's going to happen, just to be clear.
All right.
Yeah.
Yep.
I honestly think they might be tempted to do something like that. Like, there'll be someone who says, like, look at Jared Bednar. He had the worst season in Avs history, and then turned it right around and won a Stanley Cup, within the next 5 years. And I just don't think that that applies here.
Well, it could be also George
But
Payton.
I hope it does.
It could be George Payton, too, realizing Well, Russ does not look good this year. It's going to be tough for him to prove that he does look good in this year. And so I'm 0 for 1 there. I'm 0 for 2 on the contract extension, at least right now. If I go 0 for 3 with Hackett and admit that we need to fire him, I'm probably out. They're going to be asking me questions about what I'm doing. So he may actually be advocating for Nathaniel Hackett for another year for self-preservation terms.
Right. Your self-preservation is like Tim Patrick being hurt killed us.
Yeah.
Javonte Williams being hurt killed us. Like those are 2 of our 4 best players on offense. What could you possibly have expected from us? Then we lost our left tackle. Yeah. Like you and I'm saying that in kind of like a funny voice. It is really true. Mm-hmm. That stuff has absolutely buckled them. And I think more than anything, it's Javonte and the lack of having a good running back that you trust.
Yeah, and that's a huge thing, and that's something that clearly Russ isn't elite. At least this year, he's really proving that he's not elite where he brings other people up. He needs help. And Peyton Manning's, the all-time great ones don't need help. Now, it's great if you get them good pieces, but they can elevate bad to average, average to great. Russ isn't that guy, what he's showing right now. So you do need those surrounding pieces around him, and we hoped and thought that wasn't going to be the case, but I think that's very clear now.
Yep. Bill Barnwell had a really good thing on Russ today, too. Might as well shout that out. For ESPN, it's like a 25-minute read with a whole bunch of stats and stuff. You can kind of boil it down to, like, before this year, Russell was a very average quarterback between the 20s who was really good in the red zone. Now he's terrible in the red zone and also bad between the 20s, but can't get that back, and he gets way more in depth. It is just kind of interesting to look at that, though, and be like, well, how much of that was him just being, like, shifty around the goal line and extending plays, and how much was him just kind of being an average quarterback between the 20s? Like, is he really an elevator? Was he ever an elevator? Was he ever making players around him better? And I'm still just not sure that he ever was that guy, which means if he took a step back, who knows what he is.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's hopefully that.
I think that DK and Tyler Lockett benefited greatly from Russell Wilson.
Yeah. I wonder what the numbers are going to be this year, though.
For DK and Tyler? Yeah, it's a good question.
They might just be really good.
They put up, 34 points yesterday?
Yeah, I mean, Demaryius Thomas and Emmanuel Sanders each put up 1,000 yards with Trevor Siemian. So, like, there's a part of, just getting there, and once you're there, you're that guy.
Yeah. True.
Yeah. What are they doing this year?
Metcalf only has 4 touchdowns, which is rough. But his yards per game would be the second best of his 4-year career.
Interesting. And
most catches per game.
There's just no doubt that what the Broncos want to see more than anything in these last 6 games is just Russ come alive.
Yeah, and I also just don't buy this, like, that he can't move around anymore. Like, if you watch the game yesterday, he's moving around and, like, buying time.
Not effectively, though.
He is
not very effectively.
I don't think so.
He's not throwing the ball. And again, maybe there's times he's missing guys. I think the receivers are doing a horrible job of getting open for him. And what defines scrambling effectively? If you complete a pass at the end of it?
Pretty much,
yeah. That's a big part of it.
Yeah.
But yesterday, he's buying time all game.
Yeah.
It's just not. And again, you never know until you see the all 22. Mm-hmm. Is he missing guys? Are they not getting open? Are they on the same page as, like, when you play a long time with a quarterback or you have chemistry with a quarterback, like, okay, when he breaks the pocket, like, he's going to be looking here. Like, do I dart to the sideline? Do I go deep? Like, there's a whole other level that goes to that second play.
My thing with him in the pocket, specifically with the Bronco, or when he's running around, he looks uncomfortable, scared, and it just looks like a different Russell Wilson than in the past when he's moved around. And I don't know if that's just he hasn't completely understood Hackett's system, but also when he's moving, that's not really a Hackett thing. Now, the one that he did great was the Cortland Sutton deep one near the end of the game when he was scrambling, then threw the dart to Cortland. Cortland did a good job adjusting to him. Outside of that, it just seemed like it seemed like you could, like, see the fear in his feet when he was moving.
And Barnwell had numbers on that stuff too. This season versus his last 2 in Seattle, he's been sacked 33% more often when he's pressured. So he's not getting away from pressure as much. And again, it's just like, it's tough to put football into numbers. Maybe there's more people coming free. There's 2 instead of 1,
Yeah.
And he also is completing 10 percentage points less than he did those past 2 years when he's pressured.
That I believe for sure.
Definitely.
Because it just feels like whenever he gets out of the pocket, you're just waiting. Oh, here's the time where someone's going to come open down the field. And just it feels like every time he's either throwing it away or trying to force it into an area where there isn't something. And part of me does think that has to a percentage of that has to be on the wide receivers.
I'm sure it's in the offensive line, but also Seattle's never really had a good offensive line. The Broncos' offensive line is really depleted this year. But there's just so many pieces, it's the running backs, the offensive line, the receivers, all of those need major help in the offseason.
Totally. Yeah. And it's going to be really interesting to see where they decide to go with this. Because there's a lot of different directions they can go. They can... We'll talk more about this tomorrow. They can potentially try to just cut it all down, burn it all down, including Russ, and essentially tank for the next 2 years. They can try to bolster up the offensive line. They can change the offensive coaches. They could technically change the scheme, though that would be an interesting way to go about it. There's going to be a lot of lines of thinking within the building about what they should do, and what they do is going to tell us a lot about what they thought the problem was and who they think needs to be fixed the most.
100%. I completely agree with you.
I also think, really quick, a new coach could come in and have a whole different level of power when it comes to Russell Wilson, right?
True.
Like this, I'm not the guy that you handpicked when you were, asking to be traded and you came and toured the facility. This isn't Russell Wilson's team and I'm just leading the reins.
100%.
No, you don't have that level of cachet around here anymore because one, you haven't earned it on the field. And two, I'm the new sheriff in town. And I think it could go a long way in terms of holding him to the standards that you expect from the other players.
I don't think you could take the office away, though.
You could. And that
You absolutely could.
A new coach could take the office away. He could say Sierra doesn't get to go into the facility during training
you
camp.
Could say that
he can say your team does not get to be on the sidelines of my practice during the season. They can be on the hill if they want. They can come in after hours. They can do those things. That would send a huge message to the players in the locker room.
I agree with all that stuff. I also think that if you walk in there and say, I need the keys to your office, it's just going to be bad blood from the start.
And it could be, but you know what? He's not playing at a level where he just gets to dictate everything. Now, unfortunately, his contract says that, but that's why it would have to be a new voice coming in order to do that.
Right. And I do think that, the coach can be the bad guy as long as there's, an offensive coordinator or a quarterback's coach who's the good guy on the other side.
Yep. And I honestly think we're kind of at the point where that needs to happen to some extent. And that's really a tough part that I don't think Nathaniel Hackett can really do, because even last week he was still saying we need to build the whole offense around Russ, which on the surface, you do build the whole offense around your quarterback. Yes. But when you don't have to publicly say that when it's looking so bad 10 weeks into the season.
Yeah, totally.
Yep.
Something that does look, yes.
Real quick, I just want to give a shout out to all of the great Seahawks fans in our comments, hitting us with views and likes. We couldn't do it without you guys, so appreciate you stopping by.
And how about you just hit us with a thumbs up, too? We provide you with your Russell Wilson content, and I'm sure you like the way the Broncos season is going, but for all the Broncos fans out there, hit us with a thumbs up. It really helps us, benefits us, and in no way does it show your support for the Denver Broncos lackluster season. It just helps us out, so thank you so much. And also, check out our friends over at DraftKings Sportsbook. As Ryan said earlier, bet $5 on any NFL team to win. If they win, you get $150 free dollars in your account. There were a couple of easy locks yesterday. I mean, you could have easily done it on the Chiefs. Eagles, almost a 7-point touchdown favorite. Could have put $5 on them. They would have won. There's probably a lot of locks, easy locks this week on this deal, too. And when you get that, it's $150 free dollars to use on so many other games. Maybe then is when you take some gambles and take some chances. So head to the App Store now, download the top-rated DraftKings Sportsbook app now, and use promo code DNVR when you sign up in order to get this deal. That's promo code DNVR over at DraftKings Sportsbook. And speaking of DraftKings Sportsbook, there is something I love over there for this week, and let's dive into our DraftKings Sportsbook pick of the week. Another week, another Broncos under. What are they, 10-1 now?
Yes, 10-1 is the under in Broncos games.
Under. And I'm actually impressed with DraftKings. They aren't getting fooled by the Ravens very much. The over-under, do you guys know what it's set at?
41?
41. Henry, do you know?
I'd say 40.
40. Ryan, I think my guess yesterday was 41. They're not getting us fooled. 38 is the
I think it
over-under
opened
here.
at around 41.
And it's already dropped
and it's
down. Wow.
Dropped down.
So get in now on this because it's probably only going to continue to get lower. Despite the Ravens being able to put up 27 points yesterday, despite the Ravens having a good offense, the Broncos offense, until I see it, they're not going to fool me. The Ravens themselves aren't going to score 38 in this game, so I think the under still hits, and it'll go to 11-1.
Wow. Just insane. I mean, usually the book adjusts to these things and just like refuses to let this stuff happen, but for whatever reason, they keep allowing us to take it.
Yep,
it's really the most fun part of watching the Broncos game for me. Once it gets past like the second quarter and I'm like, oh, yep, I know what game we're headed for. Well, time to root for the under.
Oh, man. And typically you're not sweating it.
No, very rarely have we sweated. Yesterday, sweated out a little bit because the Panthers could have kicked a field goal to push it. Or I was worried that they were going to just break a touchdown on that 4th and 1.
Wouldn't have been shocked.
Yep. All right, Henry, what do you got for us?
Let's see. Give me the Broncos plus 8.5.
Oh no!
I like the under so much better. But I mean that's a lot of points. And I think this defense is good. Like it didn't look great yesterday against the Panthers, which you don't like, but you know, if they're good in the red zone, which they have been, you see the path to keeping this close, you know, 17-10, 16-13. Like there haven't been a lot of games that the Broncos have played where they've lost by more than 8.5 points. I'm just going to keep riding with it. Plus 8.5.
There you go.
All right.
I like the under so much better though.
Okay, there we go. You can just tag along.
The odds on this one aren't that great, and that's what makes me really love it. Give me USA money line tomorrow. Need to win to advance, and they're plus 100 to win. Even money right across the board. Plus 240 draw, which would be a terrible result for them, and obviously loss. Plus 300. Iran is probably playing for a draw because a draw would put them through as long as Wales beats England, though I don't know if they want to live under the assumption that that's just going to happen, which is a great thing about the World Cup because these two games kick off at the exact same time, so you can't scoreboard watch. Or I guess you can, but you have to decide your game plan before the game. Anyways, plus 100 tells me that the book thinks this is a good matchup for the United States, which it definitely is. They've got to win. They've got to score. Plus 100.
I love it. I absolutely love it. I hope that happens. I hope it happens.
And come down to the bar for that because those have been absolutely insane.
Yes, it's going to be electric. Now, should we talk to the people? Because I think there's some commenters that are electric. Oh, no, we got something else. Yeah.
I thought I just assumed you're right.
Well, I'm the only one who ever does that.
Sports fan. It's awesome. If you're looking for gifts for people for Christmas, then go to Sports Fan because they have all sorts of good stuff. There's 4 locations around Denver, 2 on 16th Street, 1 at Park Meadows, 1 off Federal right where our tailgate is. And it's packed with stuff that you can't find anywhere else. It's all really cool. We've talked about the Broncos baseball jerseys, but they have basically any sort of Denver sports gear that you could look for. So stop into Sports Fan and buy some gifts.
There you go. Okay, now let's talk to the electric people. First comment on Super Chats coming in from Kyle Garcia. Says, any thought to media, Tyler Columbus, and fans calling Wilson's social media team tone deaf for continuing to post positive messages during the season?
I think that's silly.
Yeah.
To criticize it personally. Like,
yes.
What do you...
They are tone deaf, though.
But I agree.
I don't think it is. Like you're using positivity to try to get out of the darkness.
If he were just to not post anything for a month on Twitter or Instagram or anything, I think that people would respond well. I also agree, like, I don't really care. I don't really care.
I guess it's not necessarily the positive, and I guess my issue isn't with his entire social media team, everything he posts, but I do think there are posts, and we've talked about them, where they are pretty tone deaf and when they come out and stuff. So I was thinking of specific ones, not just in general.
Yeah. When I was like 13, I tweeted at a Rockies player like you shouldn't be tweeting if you've lost 9 games in a row or something, and then like I look back on that and I'm like I was an idiot. So
Well,
At the same time, though, I just don't understand. If you know people really, really, really hate you right now, why make yourself more of a target by posting a slow motion video of you walking in with your fancy suit? Like that's not going to solve anything. It's just gonna make the people who hate you more. But you're gonna get your likes, and it's gonna help you sell whatever you're trying to sell ad wise. And
my advice would be, don't ever make decisions based off of what the people who hate you think.
well,
Okay.
then what do you think about what John Harbaugh said? Did you see Lamar Jackson's tweet yesterday?
I did.
Eat
I didn't
dick.
actually see exactly what
Yeah, that's what he said.
That's what it was. John,
Not even eat a dick.
No, just eat dick.
So
Yeah.
John Harbaugh talked about that today, and he said, I heard about it last night and talked to him this morning. I just beg guys not to get into the Twitter world, especially after a loss. It's not going to be positive. I think that's reflective in his response. So John Harbaugh, Ryan, would completely agree with 13-year-old you and say, don't get on Twitter after a loss.
He's saying it in a different way, though. He's saying, like, you're emotional, you're upset.
Yeah.
All you're going to see is negative energy, negative energy,
Yeah.
negative energy. Like,
Yeah.
just try and stay away from it, which I agree with that.
Yes.
I don't agree with, like, you can't tweet if you're not winning.
Okay.
No,
Yeah.
but you just need to know what kind of response you're going to get. Like, it's just going to piss a bunch of people off.
And
Also, sorry to former Rockies third baseman Ian Stewart.
oh man, loved Ian Stewart.
Wow.
Me too.
Ryan didn't.
I made him just so good on like MLB 06 or whatever it
Yeah.
was.
Yeah. He looked like he could be really
Yeah,
good.
He did. He did. All right, next super chat coming in from the Great Browse says, the fact that Hackett is still our head coach is frustrating and shows that George Paton is stuck in his pride.
I think this decision is gonna come from above him regardless.
Yeah.
Now,
yeah.
I think, I don't know. I worry about if he's on the same page with them anymore. Like, I think originally I trusted that those two groups would be on the same page because George Paton was doing a nice job and he got Russell Wilson here, which seemed like a good thing.
Yeah.
And all this stuff. It's like now they're not only looking at the quarter bill he gave to Russell Wilson, they're also looking at the $25 million that he gave to Nathaniel Hackett, and they're like, man, this guy sure is good at spending our money
Right.
and getting nothing out of it.
Yeah, blowing our money.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I just wonder if that trust is still there. But I was gonna say, like, if he wanted to make the move, I think they would probably support it at this point. But I find it more likely that they would come down with the iron hammer and say, change today.
Right. Right. Yep.
They have the final say.
Of course, they absolutely do. Next one from Do Okananya. Right, did I get that one right? I think so. He says, is PS2 as good as we thought, or has he looked good because no one was throwing to him? Past couple games, he hasn't been elite.
Yeah, I'm sad that this conversation
Yep.
is coming up right now. I think that, one, he's a young player who still has a lot to learn.
He isn't prime Champ Bailey.
Exactly.
22.
Right, exactly. So
Yep.
he still has to grow. And I feel like yesterday was really a reflection of the energy within the team as a whole. And that doesn't necessarily excuse it. It's just what I think was the root of the issue is that, like, no one was playing at full capacity. But if the overall question is PS2 as good as we thought, I still believe the answer is a yes.
I think so as well. I do think he's right, though. And obviously, the past couple of games, he has not been elite. One of them was against Devontae Adams, maybe the best receiver in the NFL. And yesterday was disappointing. I mean, got beat on 2 big plays. One of them went for a touchdown. But I would not be selling my Pat Surtain stock right now.
No.
And if anyone is, please let me know so I can buy it.
Exactly.
Will he be a first-team All-Pro?
yeah.
After these last couple weeks, it's you can't just say yes, he is.
I agree.
At this point.
And I feel like it's important to note that every good player ever has bad stretches.
Yep.
100%.
especially when they're 22.
You know, Jerry Rice dropped passes, Peyton Manning threw picks.
Yep.
You go through the list, like, guys have down stretches. It just happens. Just because Pat Surtain is amazing doesn't mean he's going to be perfect in every game for the rest of his career. Also, this is extra magnified right now because any mistake that the defense makes could cost you the game because you're only scoring 1 touchdown per game.
Right.
So giving up a touchdown in these games is like the end of the world.
Yeah.
It wouldn't be like that if you had a legitimate offense on the other side that could actually go back and get you those points back.
What's tough is that it's just back-to-back games.
Definitely.
So in a 7-day span, you're like, wow, 2 bad games? Where if these were spread out, one was week 3 and the other is week 14, you would just say, well, he bounced back really nice to both of them.
Yep.
Now he has to play, one against, what's the guy? DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
2 against Patrick Mahomes. He has 1 against Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. So there's going to be some tough matchups, and he's going to have a chance to redeem himself.
Exactly. Next one from Fazzy D says Broncos are in the hunt at 3-8. Actually,
Wow.
in the Sunday Night Football graphics yesterday, the Broncos weren't even in the hunt.
Wow.
They just-
Everybody's in the hunt.
They weren't on the graphic.
They're
No.
not in the hunt.
4-7 teams were on there, so
Oh,
if the
yeah.
Broncos would have beat the Carolina Panthers on the
They
road,
would've
they
been
would
in
have
the
been
hunt.
in the hunt.
This would be so exciting if the Broncos had their first round pick.
Oh, it would be. It would top 3 pick.
Yeah.
Look, you're starting
Highest-
Bryce Young, CJ Stroud.
Yep, exactly. Oh, man. All right, next one. From James, Russell is trying to mimic Brady's plan. The training, diet, the way he plays, not running anymore for longevity is killing his productivity.
Yeah, Russ has to forget about playing 10 to 12 years now. This has to be about playing this contract or playing even the guaranteed years of this contract at as high of level as possible, and that means running. We have seen Russ scramble a little more. I don't know if it's he wants to or just feels like he has to now, but he has to go back to old Russell Wilson and play just as high of a level as possible without worrying about what it means for his longevity, because the way it is right now, it's hurting him more than helping him for sure.
His legs are what make him good.
Yeah.
That was the difference for his whole career. Like, he was a solid, good quarterback just in terms of throwing the ball, but the running is what actually made him one of the 10 best in the league or 5 best in the league, depending on the year.
Yep, exactly.
And I think he can get it back. I do. I don't think that just getting older means all of a sudden you can't, like, scramble.
Man, I want to believe you, Ryan. I'm not there. I'm
If
not
he was
there.
38, I would say, okay, yeah, those days are behind him. He's 34
But
or
get,
33,
but it's
turning 34
quarterbacks.
this week.
It's running quarterback. Like, who
got a big
runs the
birthday
same at
this
38
week.
as they did? Everybody falls off before that
Yeah.
in terms of runners,
Right.
Yeah.
Scares
not just
me.
quarterbacks. Like, Kareem Jackson has hit the wall. He lost his legs, and he's 34, 33.
That's a little different because of all the contact.
Yeah. Yeah,
Russ has been hit more than any other quarterback.
Yep.
it's true.
I hope you're right. I really hope you're
Yep.
right. Next one from Jonathan says, scenario, you're George. What's your top 3 moves this offseason outside of firing Hackett? Love the show. Thank you, Jonathan.
We'll have lots of time in the offseason to plan out these moves. I mean,
Offensive line,
Right.
offensive line.
I was gonna say at this point we don't even, we haven't even taken a look at who the upcoming free agents are, or like who,
Late
who's,
round of the first.
right? Who's going to be that target at the end of the first round, which is definitely going to be at the end of the first round.
Yep. Yeah, they won yesterday.
Yep.
Did they give up a point?
No, shut out.
Wow.
Man.
Yeah, I mean, you go spend half of your cap space on linemen. Don't bring back Reisner as part of that. Add a running back. Maybe not Josh Jacobs, one of the top guys, but pretty close to it. And then hire
I'll
Frank
use the
Reich.
draft for that.
Yeah, you could do that too. That's a little more risky, but yeah. I mean, Frank Reich, though, I think is the answer. You just need some offensive guy who's been good with different quarterbacks.
Yeah, I mean, he did it with Carson Wentz. He did it with Nick Foles.
There you
He
go.
did it with Philip Rivers. The last two experience.
Matt Ryan,
Yeah, just
Experiments didn't go nearly
recently,
as well.
though. Oh, it's
But Matt
tough.
Ryan. I mean, he was doing so well until this year.
Matt Ryan is doing much better after the Frank Reich.
That
after
is
he
true.
left.
That is true.
That is
I mean,
true.
remember what Philip Rivers was awful last year with the Chargers and then got back with Frank Reich. And,
Yep.
So I think that's the answer. That's part of the reason why I don't think you don't want Ejiro, in my opinion, to be interim. Like, just hide him. Because if you make Ejiro Evero, your head coach full time, the offensive coordinators you could grab are either offensive coordinators this year who got fired or like quarterbacks coaches somewhere. And that's not a pool that I think you can pick from and expect to fix Russ.
I don't think he's getting a head coaching position.
Frank Reich?
No.
I don't think so either.
And his seat's just going to get cooler and cooler because I think you play the Chiefs twice. You play the Ravens coming up. Those stats just aren't going to be as good. And then it's going to be tough to sell your fan base on hiring a defensive coordinator from a team that went 5-12, 4-13.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there's lots of stats that you could point to that can turn that around.
But I mean, I think that the defense is going to fall off a little bit. I personally think they're going to fall off significantly in these final 6 games. And then the defense is going to be a good defense, but not one where you're like, oh, wow, that's a top defensive guy.
I mean, if they play with the intensity that they played with yesterday, it's going to get ugly.
Yeah, it will. The Great Brows say, I hate the PS2 slander. Champ wasn't perfect either. Exactly. Yep. Completely
Corner
agree.
gets made to look bad maybe more than any other elite player.
It's kind of like it's kind of like an
Jalen Ramsey got cooked by Travis Kelce.
He also, I mean, he's on his decline. He's not what he was a few years ago.
Yeah,
that's the other thing about corners is they have that 1-2 year window where they're really good.
Champs was pretty
except for
too,
Champ. Yeah. Like Champ was longer.
Right.
But even his peak was just that season and a half or one full season that was great.
And it's
statistically that was his peak.
Yeah. I mean, he had 1 year where you literally could not throw the ball his way or he was going to pick it.
Yeah.
I mean, and outside of that, there was another 7 years where he was really, really good.
Yes.
Okay. Which is like a long peak for a corner.
Corners are like offensive linemen. If you have a perfect game, no one talks about you. If you mess up once or twice, boy, did you have an awful game, and everyone notices it. The announcers are talking about it. Us on the post-game show, they're talking about it. It's the exact same thing where as a defensive lineman has relatively bad game, but gets through once or twice, you're like, damn, what a game he had.
Yep. All right, last one of the Super Chats. Just joking around, but great content, guys. # we are doomed.
Oh, boy.
Thanks for the Super Chats, Fazzy.
Yes, thank you. # I did not expect to be getting in Week 12.
I did not either.
All right, let's hop into a couple of these comments on the DNVR.com. Rob says, my boys, the Broncos are terrible, and that's all there is to say about the team. So I want to follow up with Hank about his turkey take. Wow.
Ooh.
What are variations of turkey on Thanksgiving? Turkey burgers, turkey bacon, sliced turkey. Does it still count toward the required turkey on Thanksgiving?
No.
It's got to be just a slice of turkey.
Yeah, like you cook a whole turkey, you get a slice of it.
There you go. He says the U.S. men's team is playing in the World Cup Tuesday in a winner-go-home game against Iran, and I know RK came back from London with an affinity for soccer chants. Can we close out the pod with a good old-fashioned U.S. soccer chant?
I believe that we will win. I believe that we will win. Never be the last.
Yeah, I guess not.
Windy City Broncos says, I thought we hit rock bottom when I watched the Raiders game. Nope. Then I thought it when we watched the Panthers game. Nope. No rock bottom is seeing Wilson and Hackett give their reaction to the game. That's rock bottom. Knowing that not only is football this bad, but that we suck with at least half of this dynamic duo for years, or we're stuck for this dynamic duo for years.
You're definitely not stuck with Nathaniel Hackett.
No. It's jump change to the Penners if they want to get rid of them.
And we'll talk about this more tomorrow, but maybe we came out a little too strong on the idea that you can't move on from Russell Wilson. It is a thing you could potentially maybe do.
It's potentially possible. Potentially possible.
I'm excited for that one.
That will be fun.
Yeah. I'll save all my takes. I'll try. Next one is from Bronco Oilers.
Yep.
If Russ is really still dealing with the torn lat and bad hamstring, just sit him. We're not competitive, and I don't see what favors we're doing him by having him play hurt behind a bad O-line in a scheme that he clearly isn't comfortable with. We can't afford to have any of that drag into next season. It's also time for Russ to make peace with the fact that he's not a traditional pocket passer like Rodgers, Brady, etc., and accept playing in an offense that doesn't ask him to be something he's not. I hope the next coach comes in and gets rid of Russ's second floor office and holds him accountable to earning back his status as a leader in the locker room. I don't think Russ has the self-awareness to do so on his own accord, but he really needs to adjust the way he engages with his teammates. He fumbled that opportunity in Seattle, and frankly, if things are going to work out in Denver, I think he's going to need to correct that. It's sad to say this, but Russ needs football rehab and not just for the on-field struggles.
Jeez, I mean, I totally see where you're coming from, though, and I also do agree that those things need to change in the offseason, and I just don't see a situation in which Nathaniel Hackett changes it unless the ownership comes in and says, this is not Nathaniel Hackett's call. This is not George Payton's call. This is our call. Russ, you're losing the office. You're losing these special privileges. You're one of the players just like the rest of them, and you're going to be treated like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's going to happen with the next coach.
And that's probably the easier place to do it.
And I think it's going to be top to bottom, the new strength and conditioning coach and all this stuff. Like,
Yep.
I think Russ is going to be held to a very, very different standard
Yep.
the next offseason.
And honestly, if he had played super good this year, it would have been like, yeah, keep it. You earned it. You're the quarterback.
Do whatever you
You're our
want.
leader. Do whatever you want. When you don't play well, playing well is everything.
Yes.
Like, you are treated differently, not just in terms of these things, but if you do off the field stuff, you're treated differently. Is that right or wrong? Maybe it's totally wrong, but that's just how the NFL and sports and really business is.
Yeah, anyone who's ever played on a sports team knows the best players get preferential treatment,
Yep.
and everyone else has to earn everything.
Yep. And it's BS, but that's what it is.
Yeah, and Russ is no longer one of the best players.
It's true. It's very true. Nope. Mile High Till I Die says, as much as I love Coach Evero, I hope he doesn't become the interim head coach. Hiring interims as head coaches almost never works out, and if you make him the interim, he's not coming back as the defensive coordinator again next year. I'd rather anyone else be an interim so we can have a chance at keeping Evero as our DC next year.
Yeah, I find that to be such an odd thing when you force a contract, a coordinator onto a coach.
See, I wouldn't force it though. Like if you hire whoever, Frank Reich, he comes in and you can say, who do you want as your defensive coordinator? If you want, you can have Ejiro Evero. Like, he is here, he is under contract, he is yours if you want him. If you have somebody else, you guys feel free. You have a guy if you want him, and he's really good.
Yeah, but knowing what I know about NFL coaches, he probably has like a brother-in-law who really needs a gig, and it'll go to him.
It's not like Evero's Nathaniel Hackett's best friend.
No.
Oh,
no,
okay,
no.
right.
Although he's done great.
And he's under contract.
Everyone
Yes.
else on the staff is also Nathaniel Hackett's best friend.
That is very true. Coach Tobin says, with all due respect, can you guys please do a podcast without seeing if someone will be fired or not? That's all I've heard the past few weeks. Can we get better coverage of the actual game, please? I will stop there. And Coach Tobin, I think when the game is the most important thing at that time of the season, that's all we do. That's all we do in post game. That's all we do Monday. That's all we do Tuesday is break down the game. And then on Wednesday and Thursday, we're breaking down the game that's coming up. Unfortunately, the Broncos have put us in this position every November or December, every single year, where the game is not as important right now as potentially moving on from a head coach, as looking toward the future. Yesterday's game was so awful, where it doesn't make sense. They're 3-8 now.
There's nothing to
Focusing
talk
on the
about.
game is not as important as looking toward the future. In my opinion, that's at least the way I think we approach this.
And there's not like a crop of exciting young players who it's worth breaking down how they played. Like yesterday was a lifeless football game from start to finish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you could talk maybe a little bit about Greg Dulcich and how he almost had a touchdown catch. You could talk about Baron Browning and, how he's looked since he came. We are going to touch on all of these things, but you're right, Zach. The games literally have lost their importance.
Yeah.
Yep.
And we can't just sit here and pretend like it was worth just as much as the Niners game, in the beginning of the season.
Especially when nothing happens. I mean, when the Panthers run the ball 46 times, throw it 19, they slowly work their way down. They punt more often than not. Defense isn't really making any plays. Talk about Pat Surtain getting torched a couple times. The offense, obviously nothing to talk about. They couldn't run the ball, couldn't throw the ball. And there's a couple of things that did happen we've talked about over and over and over again.
Yeah.
There's just nothing to talk about.
Right, it's true. If there was a massive decision that, the win or loss came down to, we would have talked about
We've
that.
been all over it.
So if there was a massive game-changing play that, someone made or didn't make.
Like the Raiders game last week.
Yeah.
We talked all about it.
Yep, exactly.
Yep.
Nash Bronco says, hi, boys. Thanks for the great coverage as always. Got to vent for a second. This loss is on all three factors and everyone on the team. The team that trotted out there had no motivation, no energy, and no respect for any of their coaches. The body language from everyone was very clear. This team sucks. They know it, and they don't care enough to reverse it. I have all the respect in the world for players as humans, but on the field, product is pathetic. This is the first game I've ever legitimately thought about turning off. You guys are right. We have to rebuild. The injuries to this team are numerous, and this is why I'm not on the fire George Payton train yet. You can expect Randy Gregory to get injured, but not Javonte, Patrick, Bowles, Cush, JJ, and KJ all at once. Not sure there's any reason to watch this team other than my love for the state of Colorado and everything related to it, including you guys. Well, thank you, Nash Bronco.
Appreciate the love. You also, no matter what, have to change the strength and conditioning this year. And
I think it's so obvious they're going to.
I am always in defense of these guys because football is a brutally violent sport that causes injuries, and there's no magic formula to stopping it. But you have to at least show that you tried to change something to impact that, those sort of things. And yes, there are strength and conditioning coaches who have better track records than other strength and conditioning coaches when it comes to injuries. Lauren Landau does not have that going for him at all. He's done this once. And this is now several years in a row where the Broncos have had massive injury issues. I don't know if it's his fault, but you have to at least find out if you can help the injuries by changing that.
I completely agree, especially just the soft tissue injuries have just been crazy, not just this year, but the past few years.
Yep. Next one's from Gunner, who says, I'll never forget where I was when apathy set in for me with this team. November 27th, 2022, Section 516, Row 21, Seat 9, Bank of America Stadium, Charlotte, North Carolina. My vibes were so high heading into the Panthers game. Being on the East Coast, I don't get to see the Broncos in person often. I've only attended 4 games in my life, now 5. Sadly, I've also only seen them win once. September 22nd, 1991. Wow, he hasn't been to a game they won in our lifetimes. At home against the San Diego Chargers. Then came back-to-back losses, Washington at FedEx in 2009, and Christmas Eve of 2017, finally last year at Pittsburgh. This was supposed to be the comeback, but alas, I might just be bad luck. Now a special for Numbies. The winning score in all of the games I've been to leading up to yesterday has been 27 points. 27-19, 17-27, 11-27, and 19-27 respectively. Step in the right direction with 23, I suppose. At least we won the coin flip. Latavius Murray broke a gainer, and I got to meet up with Virginia Beach Bronco. All love to DNVR and go Broncos.
Well, hey, at least, well, no, actually not. Yesterday was the lowest scoring Broncos output of a game that he's been to.
Wow. Well, that's fun.
Yep, to
That's
make
fitting.
it all worse. Yep.
Russway Johnson, great job reminding us of the Russell Wilson impossible cap situation. Couldn't we add a cost-controlled quarterback to the room, though? That way we can at least try benching Wilson if this continues. A rookie or maybe find our own Geno Smith type. Rookie is not a good idea because we need an offensive lineman. Possible reclamation projects include Mayfield, Darnold, Zach Wilson, Jordan Huntley, Jordan Love, or Mitch Trubisky. Does that any of those excite you guys?
Hey, Jordan Love last night. He may be the Packers' future.
Low key.
Yeah.
That ball was flying out of his hand.
And he looked calm. I was afraid for him that he was just gonna look so out of place, but he didn't.
Also just looked like someone who's been watching Aaron Rodgers for years and like mimicking his motions.
It's so true. Do you see the Michael Jordan tongue that he's doing?
Yeah. Like that first throw he had, he just like kind of flicked sidearm, and I was like, that looked just like Aaron Rodgers. That was weird.
Yeah. You wonder if this is the start of a change there. Although the Packers aren't in as bad of a situation as the Broncos, but they owe Aaron Rodgers like $55 million guaranteed next year.
I pray for our friends over at CHTO
that
Jordan Love is not an answer at franchise quarterback. Can you imagine, like, the Chiefs just going from Patrick Mahomes to another guy, and you're like, are you serious? And they're good for like 35 straight years, and then they just do it again.
Yeah. Favre to Rodgers to Love. That's crazy.
Yeah, it is.
If it works, which it probably won't.
Did you guys see the photo from behind of Jordan Love standing next to Jalen Hurts? It said Love Hurts.
Yeah. That's a good one. Going back to his question, though, unless you do something absolutely insane, which we'll talk about tomorrow, you gotta give Russ one more year to make it work. Like, you just have to. With that contract, you just have to.
I think what you can do is go the rookie route, even this coming year with a 6th round pick.
Bailey Zappi.
Yeah,
Sixth round, yeah.
it's not an answer, but it's like you're just giving yourself 0.5% chance. And then the following year, and we'll dive into this tomorrow, maybe then you go 1st round.
Yeah.
If the Broncos even got like a college free agent quarterback that people have heard of, they would be calling for him from week 1 of next year.
So
For the
true.
preseason.
You're signing up for that.
Yeah,
You know
it
what
would
happens
be.
during training camp.
If Kyle
People love
Sloter
those
was on
guys.
this team right now,
Exactly.
people would
My
be asking for him to
goodness.
start.
Oh, yeah.
What a world. True Champ Fan 24 says, my peoples, we just need to sign 10 UDFA quarterbacks and draft nothing but offensive linemen, LMAO. Maybe we get lucky and get a UDFA that can come in and be as bad as Russ, but he will be an underdog, so he will at least be lovable, right? Please send help.
Who's the best undrafted free agent quarterback of all time?
Kurt Warner?
Yeah. Yep.
Good one. Mel Burrow says, what hurts more, the contract given to Russell Wilson or the draft capital lost to get him? Definitely the contract.
Yeah, it is a contract because
gotta be.
you have, after this coming year, you have your 1st round picks back. With Russ, you are guaranteed to be with him for at least the next 2 seasons after this. And, well, I guess we'll talk about it tomorrow.
Unless you go absolutely just, if you make the dumbest possible move.
For the most
could be
part,
kinda
though, the
fun.
next 2 years and probably even a 3rd year after this. So it's
Yep.
a way shorter impact, the draft capital.
If you're ever... Let's save it for tomorrow.
Yeah.
Orange and blue for life. Well, boys, I finally reached the point of questioning why I'm watching the game. I've never been here before as a Broncos fan, but know where it can lead us. I'm also a Cincinnati Reds fan, so I understand how Rockies fans feel. The biggest question I think there is, can a new coaching staff get Russ back to a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, and is that possible with this receiver group?
I know nothing about the Cincinnati Reds. You could tell me that's won the World Series, and I'd be like, yeah. There's no way it's as bad as the Rockies.
It is.
There's no possible way.
Yep.
Rockies don't even want to win.
Neither do the Reds.
The Rockies,
No, the Rockies
I can't
actually...
believe
the Rockies spend money.
Yeah, I was going to say
Not
the Rockies
wisely,
actually try.
But, like, yeah, they do try to an extent.
I don't know.
The Reds, there was like a crazy quote from the Reds owner this year who was just like, yeah, just don't come to the games or whatever. Like,
Oh, my gosh.
he said something insane or like, go be fans of another team.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
The
Yeah.
hits.
Rockies aren't there.
Tacoma Sam says, okay, here's my crazy idea. Have Mr. Walton send a blank check over to Tony Dungy over at NBC. Tell him whatever he needs to come fix for us. When he's inevitably uninterested, do the same strategy for Peyton Manning. Make the 2 of them a package deal. I think it gets sweet enough for them to take it seriously. If those 2 can't fix Russ, then the next 3 to 4 years are truly lost. By the way, Dungy is a devout Christian, and the pairing of him and Wilson makes so much sense. Seems the kind of move to get the free agents to want to come to Denver and play for a legendary coach. Makes more sense than Sean Payton, in my opinion.
Yeah. Anything to get Peyton Manning here, I'm all for.
Sure.
I don't know about Tony.
Tony Dungy's what, like 80?
Yeah, he's been out for a decade.
It feels like he's been on that.
67.
Okay, all right, not as bad. It's
Oh.
yeah. I don't
I mean, he's
think.
been
I
out for
also
a
don't
while.
think that would attract Peyton.
I agree.
No.
I don't even think you could get Peyton at $30 million a year to be
No.
the head coach
I mean, he's got to make more than that right now.
for sure.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Like, he's got to.
Yeah. Peyton?
Yeah.
Definitely.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, he makes that off of his entity, which he wouldn't lose. So you could add that.
There would be some conflicts of interest.
For sure.
I don't know how exactly it works, but like the ESPN deal while being head coach, there's got to be something there.
I'm sure he can leave. Jeff Saturday just walked off the set and didn't literally walk off the set, but went from ESPN
He could
to
leave.
that.
He could definitely leave. Could he still make money through like Omaha Productions? Yes, but there's probably some weird contracts.
He would just
there.
like get Pat McAfee to replace him on the Manning cast. And
Yeah.
everything would be fine.
Yeah, it's true.
Manning cast of his own games. I
would
don't
be
know. I don't know.
something.
It's
Yeah.
not going to happen regardless.
Hey, he wants to call timeouts during every Manning cast. Might as well just let him do it.
All right, Jersey Bronco says, I sat in the pouring rain watching Mike effing White ball out against the best Broncos quarterback since Peyton Manning. Every time they showed an update of the Broncos game in MetLife, it was more miserable than sitting in that cold rain. My wife blames Zach.
Whoa.
Every time
Wow.
she overhears me listening, it always seemed to be when Zach would say, the Jets are bad. I think it's time we all open our eyes. The Broncos are bad.
Yep.
Our foreseeable future is
true.
damage control until we can get out of this terrible Russ contract. On the bright side, we'll probably have the first overall pick when we can move on from Russ. We are giving Seattle a top 3 pick now, and this team will only get worse offloading the talent we do have to rebuild. There were 2 things I wanted after the game yesterday: a dry pair of pants and to listen to the boys break down the train wreck. Cheers to the only thing that makes the Broncos this year worth a single thought. DNVR. Much love from Jersey. Love you all.
If he didn't
you.
say earlier that he was sitting in the pouring rain and then came in with I need a dry pair of pants, I'd be a little concerned there. But I apologize. The Jets are not bad. And I think the word I used to describe the Broncos earlier was awful. So I think that's close to bad.
Yeah, I would go with something worse, like helpless.
Ugh, man, that is. And especially with the way you saw him play yesterday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Couldn't even help themselves.
No, yeah, they're helpless. All right, last one from Sunny Rain, who says, June 1st, eat it. Fire everyone and eat Russell Wilson's $100+ million. We haven't even begun to see rock bottom. This could bring years from now.
Yeah, we'll talk about it tomorrow.
I was going to say, it's a good last
It
comment because we are dedicating the show tomorrow to all the information that you can have around this, all of the paths, all of the options, and what it would mean to do such a thing, which would be truly one of the greatest, if not the single greatest, admissions of failure in NFL history.
Yeah.
It's a great way to put it, and it would be the greatest.
It might not even be possible in video games. But it's so crazy, it might work.
We'll talk about it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Appreciate everyone for tuning in, especially the haters. And we will catch you guys tomorrow. Hit us with a thumbs up.